What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA Show. And it is me, Huzaifa, and Justin is going to be on here momentarily, but we want to start the show off as close to the time that we promised as possible. So I just want to jump in and get us kicked off here. Couple of things that I wanted to discuss. Actually, one thing, it's kind of funny. I don't know if you guys have checked this out yet. If you guys are fans of MMA Guru, I know I talk about him a lot, but he did release a video yesterday talking about, I don't know what the heck this video is all about. It's talking about Daniel Cormier. What's up, Tehran? What's up? Great to see you. Yeah, he released this video about Daniel Cormier, and I think it's meant to be funny. It's a little bit silly, but it does touch on something that probably people should be talking about to some extent, which is Daniel Cormier's current state of being. It seems like he's a little bit poking fun at Daniel Cormier, but it is kind of true. Daniel Cormier is really ballooned up, out of control since his retirement. I think some of this has to do with that athlete mindset, the mindset of people that are really hyper ambitious and goal oriented. It's this tendency to binge or kind of overuse maybe substances, or perhaps in his case, food is what seems to be happening. I don't know. It's just, even though it is sort of meant to be a comical video, I do think it's worth a watch. If you guys are subscribed to the MMA Guru, if you haven't checked him out yet, just check it out. He released it last night. I watched it. And, but anyways, just wanted to start that off and start the show off by throwing that out there and get a chance to check it out. So without further ado, let's jump into the topics for today. And as I mentioned, Justin will be joining momentarily. He just texted me, let me know he's going to be running a few minutes late. But let's start off because there is a ton to talk about. And guys, this weekend is UFC 310, which I'm so excited about. We're going to talk, like, the card is beyond stacked. It's crazy. This one really flew under the radar. And I think a lot of folks, including myself, were originally disappointed that this main title fight with Bilal versus Shavkat got canceled. But I would almost argue that this card is kind of better in a weird way, even though the title's not on the line, which always makes it very exciting. And they could have done an interim title, and I think they didn't, because last time they removed the title fight and they made an interim title fight with Tom Aspinall, created all this craziness and drama and nonsense that would have never happened if they didn't make that interim title fight, right? So I think the UFC learned their lesson. They're like, all right, even though this could be a great interim title fight, we're just going to let it be as a number one contenders fight and let these guys battle it out. But man, this fight with and we're not talking about this necessarily today, although we can. I'm going to leave it up to Justin when he joins. But this fight between Shavkat and Ian Gary is crazy. We'll probably touch on it later on in the week. Actually, we'll probably touch on it a little bit today. But that is wild. And then we just have so many amazing fights on the prelims as well. So we're going to dig through that entire card. Tehran says Gary Shavkat is going to be a dogfight. Oh my God, it's going to be so crazy. Whatever happens, I mean, it could also end relatively quickly. Shavkat obviously has this crazy knockout streak. He's finishing all his opponents in the first or second round. So it could be a quick fight, but it's exciting regardless of how the fight goes. It's just an interesting question to know who would win, who's going to be victorious, who's, I guess, going to be better on the night. So it's one of these fights that you just can't lose. You can't lose. If it's going to be even a 5-round decision, which probably is not going to be the case, but even a five-round decision would be an amazing fight all the way through. So anyways, without further ado, let's jump in to the title fight on this card, which is Kai Asakura. Now, for those of you guys who aren't familiar or super familiar with Kai Asakura, I wanted to play this compilation reel that I found. We're going to play it without audio because I don't want to get any sort of copyright issues. But I think this should be okay to play on the channel. But just to get you guys hyped, and I'd love to know in the chat, let me know, guys, what you think of Alexander Pantoja. And I thought he had a great fight in his last showing. And he is an exciting fighter, but he's just not somebody that jumps off the page to me, just from a personality standpoint, an interview standpoint. And I think Kai Asakura is going to be potentially bringing a lot of excitement to the UFC stage, just because he comes with this massive fan base from Ryzen. But more importantly, man, his fighting style is crazy. So Tehran says he doesn't care for the main event. Hold on, let me see if I can change your mind, because I wasn't super stoked about it either. But the more I watch about Kai Asakura, the more I get very excited. Look how he fights. So check this out. We're going to watch this all together right now. I would love, okay, perfect. Oh no, I thought Justin was joining right now. Oh, Justin's joining. Okay. I want Justin to check this out because I don't think he knows much about Kai Asakura either. Justin, what's up?
Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry about that. Some guy was over haggling me on some stuff I had for sale, and I was kind of arguing a little bit, so I'm a little late.
Worries. No worries. Okay, so we're jumping into the main topic right now, by the way, which is Kai Asakura. And Tehran says he doesn't care for the main event. And I felt this way as well. I want to know your thoughts before we show this video. Actually, let me remove this for a second. I want to hear your thoughts, and then I'm going to show this highlight reel. So I wasn't super excited either. I'll tell you, I do think Alexander Pantoja is an exciting fighter to watch, but he doesn't jump off the page to me in terms of his personality and his interviews and whatnot. So it's just not somebody that I typically get super excited about. I love Brandon Moreno, and I was really excited about Muhammad Mokaev, but obviously he's out of the UFC now. But I am getting very excited about this title fight because of Kai Asakura. But Justin, what are your, is this a fight that is of interest to you that you're excited about, or what do you think?
I don't get really excited about 125ers. Now, I have seen some highlights this morning from this guy. I saw a brutal video of him breaking his opponent's jaw, just freaking crushing it. So we're talking about this guy has power, and him coming over from such a great kickboxing background. I mean, I always like to see what these cross promotion guys can do in the UFC. I mean, having success in other promotions is one thing, but to get on the big stage in the UFC in front of all the eyes, in front of all the fans, in front of, arguably the biggest organization in the world. Some guys, they get over. You look at I mean, I don't want to mention any names because some of them are my friends, but you look at some of these guys that were in other promotions that were on, like, for instance, one guy was on a 20-fight win streak. He comes over to the UFC and, kind of fizzled out really quick. So, I'm looking forward to the matchup in the sense of, let's see what this guy can do under the big stage, or in the big stage.
And Yuri Prohaska, obviously a very famous UFC fighter, is going to be fighting your boy Jamahal Hill pretty soon, which we're going to talk about later. But he was a champion from Ryzen, and he's done tremendously well with a very unorthodox style of fighting. So this is another Ryzen alum coming to the UFC. But okay. And, well, by the way, what do you think of Alexander Pantoja?
The little bit of, he beat Brandon Moreno, man, and Brandon's my guy. Brandon's super tough. So, the guy's super tough. Unfortunately, the 125 division just doesn't do enough for me or for most people. That's why it's always on the chopping block. We're talking about some of the most skilled martial artists in the whole sport is the 125 division. But there's just not those big dramatic knockouts that fans want to see. And I think that's why the division can't get going. Not to mention, there's not really anybody that's incredible on the mic.
Yes, I agree. So, okay. And I think part of the reason fighters have talked about this, or other analysts have talked about this, I think one of the reasons why we have less knockouts is, again, you just can't generate as much power, and the power level, the ratio of power to, I think, your ability to take a strike or your cranium strength or whatnot, there's, it doesn't kind of go down proportionately. And that's why we see in the heavyweights, we see many more knockouts, because the power increases dramatically with I don't think that much of a difference in the neck strength and the head strength, etc., to sustain these blows. So I think that's what it's all about. We also see a lot fewer knockouts in the women's division, I believe, for the same reason. So anyways, all right. Oh, Tehran says, I wish the UFC would get rid of the 125 division. Okay, wait, hold your thoughts. Let's watch this highlight reel. And we're going to be watching this without any audio. So Justin and I can talk over it if we would like to. But here we go. Check this out. This is crazy, man. The way this guy fights is insane. It almost he's very technical. He's very, very technical. So I don't want to say he's totally reminds me of Yuri, but the way that he fights with some reckless abandon here. Watch, he's the guy in the gold trunks. Look at him. He's just so there's just so much action. Okay, there he's just throwing haymakers. And it looks like he does have a decent ground game. Is it true, Justin, in Ryzen that there's just less grappling in general? Or, do you notice any differences between the promotions in that sense?
They don't really want grappling. Ryzen is very big. I know some guys that have fought for Ryzen. I know some incredible fighters that have fought for Ryzen. As an Asian-based, MMA, unit, that's just they want striking. You know what I mean? They do MMA, but they are more pro to having strikers. That's why, one kickboxing championship has some of the best kickboxers that we've never heard of before. It's because, again, there is grappling, there is wrestling, but primarily it's a striking organization.
Look at that takedown. By the way, there's some of these highlights where you see him do a soccer kick, which I know is legal in Ryzen, but still not legal in the UFC. But now I believe knees to ground opponents are fully legal. I think he throws one of them in this fight. Let me see. I mean, dude, this guy is insane. Oh my God, dude, he's so much fun to watch. He almost reminds me a little bit in terms of his aggressiveness of Hamzat. Obviously, a very different style.
Yeah, it's a little bit different style, but yes. But again, who's this opponent?
Look at that! Holy smokes!
Who's this opponent?
Yeah, true.
Who's the next guy? Who's the next guy? Who's the next guy? We're talking about the UFC. We're talking about the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the best fighters in the world. I don't recognize any of these guys. I've never heard of any of these guys before. These guys could be all have losing records. I'm not saying they do, but hypothetically speaking, they could all have losing records just getting smashed by this guy. When this guy comes and makes his UFC debut, which it's going to be soon. When is it?
Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. I mean, that's when the questions are answered because again, he's beating, and again, all these guys are tough. I'm not saying they're nobodies, but they're nobodies. You know, they're not in the UFC. They're not world recognized by the UFC or by any organization. These guys are just tough Asian guys, man. And again, I don't want to take away anything from him, but until he beats somebody of caliber in the UFC, I'm not impressed.
Got you. All right, fair enough. I will say it is exciting. It has gotten me. What's that noise, Louisa? Oh, okay. Sorry. No, but I'm hearing like clicks. That's not the door, is it? No. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, guys. So anyways, yeah, I mean, I get that. And I just will say that fighting style is so exciting. So to me, I am pretty amped up. I am pretty psyched. It sounds like, I think it's going to be tough for either of us to make a prediction, but I assume it sounds like you would go with the UFC vet with Alexander Pantoja just from the standpoint of he's been in there and he's been fighting in the UFC for a long time.
Yeah, well, or from the standpoint, I train with Brandon Moreno, and I know how tough Brandon is. Brandon is a man amongst boys a lot of times in the 125-pound division. So see what Pantoja did with him. I'm assuming he's going to come out victorious and ruin this Rising Fighters debut.
Okay, well, let's see. I'm going. I want this guy to win, Kai Asakura. So I'm just going to be picking Kai Asakura from the heart, and we'll see what happens. Okay, now I want to talk about before we get into topic number 2, which is actually the Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov fight. Let's get into this. Let's get into this card first of all. So hold on, let me go into UFC 310. I don't know if you guys realize how deep and have you looked at the prelims of this card and like the entire card? It's insane.
I haven't.
Okay, look at this. So we got Kai Asakura, Alexander Pantoja at the top. Obviously, a huge fight here. I didn't put this on the topic list today, but we of course can talk about it because it's obviously the people's main event. It's the fight that everybody is by far most excited about. I know that you mentioned before you thought it was a bit of a mistake from a business standpoint for the UFC to put an undefeated against an undefeated. I have a feeling they wanted to put Colby against Shavkat, but Colby wouldn't do it. As we've talked about many times, he won't fight either Shavkat or Ian Machado Gary. So that would have been kind of interesting. But anyways, I think it's going to be super cool. Look at this fight, dude. Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov. This is going to be an insane fight. Look at the odds, too. This changed. This was minus 325. Now it's going up to minus 345. I want to talk about this next. But then Bryce Mitchell. Remember Kron? Do you remember Kron Gracie's last fight?
I don't, but I'm not a Kron Gracie fan. I think I don't like this matchup. I don't think he's deserving of this matchup. I think this is a weird matchup, and I don't like it. It's going to be a boring fight. I think it's going to be slow-paced grappling. Kron's an incredible grappler. Bryce, an incredible grappler. That's the fight that I get up and I go to the bathroom at.
Well, I still want to watch it because I love Bryce Mitchell, and I think Bryce Mitchell is going to smoke him because Kron looked terrible in his last fight. He immediately went to guard, and he was trying to fight the entire fight in guard position. Hence, the odds are the way that they are, minus 750. So maybe this is kind of just like, hey, we have a legacy fighter going in. They're giving him a fight against Bryce Mitchell, who's a fan favorite, and they're giving Bryce Mitchell maybe a fight that they believe he can win. I don't know. I'm still excited just because I love Bryce Mitchell so much. But yeah, Kron Gracie looked horrible. His striking is, I don't know.
Below elementary.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So, but he is a legend of the game. He's got that Gracie name. So, Nate Landwehr, dude, Nate the Train. Come on, this is going to be a fun fight no matter what. Fighting I don't know who this guy is, but South Korean fighter. Maybe we can assume there'll be some good striking, taekwondo, perhaps karate. But that's kind of interesting. Look at this fight on the prelims. Insane.
Yeah. I always wonder how the UFC does this because if you go back up, Kron Gracie, like who gives a fuck about him? I want to see Anthony Smith. I want to see Dominick Reyes,
Me
guys that
too.
have put their life on the line and put their careers on the line to entertain us. Kron Gracie, I don't know why he's on the main card. I can't think of any notable fight that I'd be like, wow, that was an awesome fight. Like, dude, he's a standard Gracie guy, incredible grappler. Don't get me wrong, he's world class, but it's a sleep it's a go to sleep fight, man. Go to the bathroom, go get a beer, go talk to your friends during that fight. Because personally, I'm a grappler and a wrestler. I don't want to watch this fight.
We also have Nate the Train, which is, I mean, he's a fun fighter, and I think this is going to be a great fight, but I would way rather see Dominick Reyes versus Anthony Smith on the main card. So I don't know. Maybe also there's some strategy to like, hey, the people that don't buy the pay-per-view are maybe on the fence about it. They want a banger of a fight. So, this is like the main event of the prelims. I can kind of see that. Yeah. You see this and you know this is going to be a really good fight. Anthony Smith does not disappoint in terms of action. I think Dominick Reyes, he looked amazing in his last fight. I really feel like he's going to get the victory here. And I love Dominick Reyes, the one guy maybe arguably to have beat John Jones, which is insane in and of itself. Vicente Luque, that's pretty dope. Look, dude, Aljo's on this is crazy. This is completely crazy. This I don't agree with because it's not even like the main event of the prelims. I really think that should have been on the main card. I would much rather see this than, as you mentioned, the Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie fight. I just think the UFC hates Aljo, man. It's like so really weird.
And he's such a great guy. Like, I know him personally. It's not a guy that I fucking just see in the gym. Like, I know this guy personally. Like, him and I had the same neck surgery. So when I was in the UFC, Aljamain is somebody that I locked to, that I confided in my feelings about what was going on. The guy is a stand-up guy. He's helped my son with wrestling. The guy just goes out of his way. He's an incredible teammate. He's an incredible fighter. He's an incredible person. I don't understand why the UFC hates him so much. He's so awesome.
And he is also, I do like his fight. I mean, maybe some people might argue when he does the backpack thing, it's not the most, but I actually find his fights all very entertaining. His fights against Petr Yan, minus the first fight maybe with that weird DQ, but like, in general, he's a pretty fun fighter to watch. He's done amazing things. He's a really solid champ from the bantamweight division. Probably would have a great chance if he did ever get if he ever had a rematch against Sean O'Malley. So yeah, I don't understand it, but I think must be some bad blood between the UFC and him because it doesn't make sense. Brian Battle, we have that guy from what's it called? I mean, he's a fun fighter, and he also was a winner of what's the reality show of the Ultimate Fighter? Yeah, Chris Weidman sneaking in there, right? And Michael Chiesa, I don't know if you're a big fan of Michael Chiesa, but look, Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper's a legend. And against Clay.
How is he a legend? He's not a legend.
Not legend like Clay Guida is a legend, but like Chase Hooper's awesome. You don't like Chase Hooper?
No, I like him a lot. But when you just said legend and you say Chase, I'll tell you what, something that I always want when I was in the UFC, Chase Hooper's the guy I wanted to fight. I thought he was very one-dimensional grappler. I think he's an incredible grappler, but if you stay off your back. Now, fast forward to recent time.
Yeah.
This motherfucker has put time into his striking. He looked like an incredible. When I saw him fight his last fight or the fight before, I was like, whoa, okay, this guy. I mean, he's developing as a full fighter, and I can appreciate that. But I cannot go against the Carpenter, the guy that supplied us with endless entertaining fights. I mean, do you remember when he used to have long hair and it used to be in his face, and he would just walk forward like Clay the Carpenter Guida? It was my dream matchup. It is my dream matchup. If Clay ever gets cut from the UFC, I want to fight Clay Guida. I want to get back to the UFC. If I could have one UFC fight left, and one, just say, hey, I can fight anybody, it would be Clay Guida. He is a legend of the sport. He's an incredible human being. We had our after parties together after my last fight. Clay is, he's just, dude, it's so awesome how, when you don't come from money, like me, for instance, like my family doesn't have money, blue collar. And, Clay came from a similar background. When we were at the bar and we had our tables, at the end of the night, everybody left. Clay was one of the last guys to leave. He was grabbing the extra energy drinks and the extra waters in his pocket and putting them all in his pockets. He had like 2 Red Bulls in this one. He had fucking, and I was like, Clay, what's up? He's like, it's free, man. I learned from my upbringing is when it's free, you take 2. When it's free, you take 2. And I was like, what a fucking legend, dude. This guy's fucking rich. But from how he comes from, how he grew up, like he's still doing that stuff, and I can appreciate that, man. I can relate to Clay in that moment.
Fair. But I love Chase, and yes, Clay is an actual legend in the UFC and in MMA. But Chase, man, I love to listen to fighter interviews. I've listened to pretty much every single Chase Hooper interview you can find. He's a very young fighter, but he's super, super, super bright. He really thinks through the game. I remember he had one quote that I won't forget. He was talking to Ariel Helwani, and he says, yeah, man, you really seem like a much more confident fighter nowadays. Like you've really built up your confidence. He goes, confidence is not something that you build and then you leave it. You constantly have to feed it, and you can raise it, but then it can also drop, right? You can have fights that don't go your way or different things, and then your confidence can drop. So you constantly have to feed it and keep it bolstered, right? And I thought that was super, super intelligent and a really good observation for somebody who's in his early 20s to make about the game. But anyways, as you mentioned, he looked like a pure Muay Thai striker, a Muay Thai fighter in his last fight. So his striking has really come along. Plus, moving up in weight classes, he said he feels way better, way different now. And we can see that we saw that playing out in his last fight. So it makes sense that the odds are the way they are, minus 1150. But I do think it's still going to be an amazing fight. And it's going to be a fun fight just to watch. We're watching the rise of an up-and-comer who would be an amazing champion, an amazing role model. So anyways, that's the full card. It's quite, it might be one of the best cards of the year, which is really, really crazy. I just think the problem is with this card is like, people aren't like, we don't have that many fans of the flyweight division and also of Alexander Pantoja. He's just not that, I don't know. We just don't have a lot of fans gravitating towards him. But Kai Asakura is super exciting, rooting for him, and he's going to bring over that audience from Ryzen. So that's really, really fun. Okay. So now let's get into some of the fights here. And Tehran's got a couple of comments. Let's talk about these. So he says, Gracie should not be on the main card. He agrees with you, Justin. Nate the Train should be on the prelims. Yeah, I think the reason why, though, again, they have Anthony Smith versus Dominick Reyes at the top of the prelims is to entice people to buy the pay-per-view. And then we also says, I was thinking Aljo should be main card opener. I don't know about Brian Battle on the main card. I don't know if I agree with that, but definitely Aljo. Aljo should be on the main card. And last, Crazy Sterling was, yeah, what the heck? The UFC 300, he was on the prelims as well. That card was stacked. So that card, you can kind of see they had a lot of legends on the prelims, but this one's really bizarre. Okay, let's get into this first fight here. Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov. So Alexander Volkov beat somebody who's been very scary in the heavyweight division, Sergey Pavlovich last time. Everybody was saying Sergey Pavlovich. Sergey Pavlovich was beaten by Tom Aspinall for the interim heavyweight belt, and then he lost to Volkov, and that was a great fight, by the way. Volkov really dominated. So coming off that win, and Ciryl Gane hasn't fought. I don't think he's fought since he lost to John Jones. I'm going to double check that right now. But given that the odds are minus 325 in Ciryl Gane's favor, what do you see for this fight?
You know what? Fuck Ciryl Gane, dude.
Really?
I don't like his style. When he came into the heavy division, like, wow, he moves like a lightweight and he's light on his toes. And I was kind of like intrigued by it. I was like, wow, he does. And he has some great kickboxing. But then after what John Jones did to him and made him look like a fucking chump, and he taps to a half submission, fuck Ciryl Gane. Let's go Volkov. This is the line that's upside down right here. Volkov isn't getting the respect. Ciryl Gane hasn't fought in like 3 years. He got submitted by John Jones it was at your house, right?
Yeah, but he has fought since. I just looked it up, so I forgot. He beat Sergey Spivak a year ago in September 2023.
I don't even know who that is, and it's like, you know what? I fought on the same card as Volkov twice. He was the main event of the card that I fought on. He's a huge underdog. The guy comes to fight. He's beaten so many great guys. He outstrikes me. He's outstriking Derek Lewis every round until the last 5 seconds of the fight gets knocked out. He beat Sergey Pavlovich. I think this line is upside down. I think it should be a lot closer. My money's going on Volkov in this fight.
Okay, so I'm just going to look up the rankings. I can't remember where Spivak is ranked now, but I'm going to tell you in 1 second. We go to the heavyweight division. And yeah, oh no, that's Pavlovich. Spivak he's dropped to 7th now, 7th in the ranking. So he's still in the top 10. He's still a top 10 fighter. I'm going the other way. I'm going Ciryl Gane. I love Ciryl Gane. I've been a huge fan of his since he came to the UFC, and I love his personality too. I think he's great on the mic. He's great on the mic in his own way. He's not a smack talker, but he's just like a honest, wholesome guy. He talks like Andre the Giant with the French accent, and he's got he was one of the first big French. Now we've got other guys like Benoit Saint-Denis and stuff, but he was like the first big fighter from France. He had that big following. Dude, he did pretty good. Granted, your boy Francis had a massive knee injury when he fought him, but he did pretty good against Francis. Do you remember that fight?
I don't.
Oh, it was a great fight. It was a 5-round decision, and he was gonna win, and then he went for a heel hook in the last round. And they say that that heel hook is the reason why Francis ended up winning the 5th round. He was this close to being heavyweight champion. And in retro, and remember there was that big beef because he used to train with Francis back in Paris.
Oh,
and
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, like dude, Ciryl Gane's amazing. Now,
I just thought he looked embarrassing against John Jones. You can be like, oh well, it's John Jones. He's the greatest ever. It's like, I mean, yeah, I guess, but to get what he was finished in so fast, and I don't know. I was like, bro, that was a terrible showing, and it just put a bad taste in my mouth. Hey, but again, if he comes in there and has a great performance against Volkov, who I think Volkov is a fucking dog. I mean, he can gain me back as a fan. I just thought he looked he looked scared. Like, this is your opportunity to show the whole world, that you deserve to be the best, and just go in there and get submitted by a half submission. And people are like, oh, well, let John Jones put you in that. It's like, listen, I'm 180 pounds. I'm not fucking Ciryl Gane. I don't have that size. I don't have that strength. And just to look like you were toyed with like a kid, I thought was really embarrassing. And again, I don't hate the guy, and I know it sounds like I do, where I was like, fuck Ciryl Gane. I'm kind of extreme sometimes when I do that. He can win me back as a fan. If he goes out and puts on a good performance against Volkov and is dominant, I mean, he can win me back as a fan.
So Ben Howell, actually, Ben, you might be new to the show. Welcome. Thank you for joining and commenting live. We really appreciate it. He said, I like Gane until all the fouls. Are you talking about in the Spivak fight, or which fight in particular? And then he says, Spivak fights all the time, and he is in the rankings, and you've never seen him. Well,
I've never even heard of him.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of him.
Okay, but there you go. Thank you, Ben, for joining. Really appreciate it. Let me get that comment off the screen. And yeah, keep the comments coming. Really appreciate it, guys. All right, let's move on to this Bryce Mitchell fight. We kind of already talked about it. Maybe there's not a ton to talk about, but if you guys do remember, as I mentioned before, that last time that Kron Gracie fought, I don't even know if I can pull it up in time, but like, it was just really bizarre. He was literally like immediately just pulling guard, which, I mean, maybe that would have worked like 15, 20 years ago, but I mean, who does that nowadays that immediately goes to guard? Maybe, what's that guy's name? Who just fought Craig Jones, who just fought, Bo Nickel.
Paul Craig.
I always mess up his name. Paul Craig. Maybe he might be a guy that likes to go to guard, but like nobody does it anymore. I mean, it's pretty much something that people have figured out, right? That if you go to guard, you're pretty much at a disadvantage, no matter how good your grappling or jiu-jitsu is. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So Kron Gracie, that's what he was doing the entire time last time. So I don't know. I think this will be a fun fight just for the simple fact of we all love to see Bryce Mitchell get a win. And Bryce Mitchell is the most fun on the mic after victories. I don't care what anybody says. He's the best. What? You don't like him?
No, I don't like when people bring religion into sports. I think it's a fucking waste, especially when they think, whatever their believer is, and there's like, oh, thank you for helping me win this fight. I just, or get this touchdown. I mean, you're world traveled, bro. Like, as Americans, we are the most spoiled, rotten people in the world. You go to like India. When I was in Mumbai, India, like, those are real world problems. You know what I mean? When guys are on the mic and I see Bryce, oh, the Bible and oh, thank God that I was here. It's like, bro, like, people are getting killed in third world countries. There's still slavery, still a thing. I don't know. I just don't like bringing religion into sports. Hey, if that's what you believe, that's great, but don't bring it into sports. Leave it at home.
Got you. Okay, I'll say one other cool thing about Bryce Mitchell. If you haven't watched, I think it was on his channel or the interview, dude, he built his own house. He just got married and he just had a baby, and he built his own house from scratch. He himself did it. And if you look at his house, dude, it's dope. He made like a really, really nice, like super cool modern house that he built, and it's connected to a barn and all this stuff. Anyways, Bryce Mitchell's a very interesting guy. I think he's great for the UFC, and I get your point about the religious stuff, but I think he's really fun in other respects too, just because he speaks his mind, whether or not, whether he's right or wrong on some of his theories about how the world works and the whole flat earth thing. He's just fun, and I appreciate anybody who's passionate about what they think and what they believe in. They're not afraid to put it out there, even to get ridiculed. So Bryce Mitchell, let's go. Can't wait for that fight. All right, let's move along to this fight. I really want to hear your thoughts on this. So as we discuss this, let me pull up both of their recent records. I remember Dominick Reyes, I can't remember who his last win was against, but I'm going to pull it up right now. He beat Dustin Jacoby back on June 8th. Yeah, this last summer. Not super familiar with Dustin Jacoby, but it was.
Justin,
I'll
tell you a little bit about him. He's a friend of mine, coached by Dennis Davis for a long time, so I got a lot of work in with him. He's an incredible kickboxer. He came over from K1. He was a standout kickboxer in K1. He transferred to the UFC, had some incredible knockouts in the UFC. But when you're fighting someone like Dominick Reyes that allegedly didn't beat him, but allegedly beat him, and that's just a tough task for anybody to handle. But Dustin Jacoby is a fucking dog. He is a world-class kickboxer, and he's a world-class MMA fighter as well.
Got it. All right. Yeah, and Dominick Reyes knocked him out in round 1 in just about 2 minutes. Dominick Reyes looked awesome in that fight. So as you mentioned, and it was a knockout against a K1 kickboxer. So that's pretty impressive. Knowing that, and let me just pull up Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith has been on a bit of a skid, although he did beat that one up-and-comer recently. He lost to Roman Dolidze, but before that, he beat, who was it again? I can't remember. I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, he beat Vitor Petrino. So that was I think a short notice fight. And then prior to that, he lost to Khalil Roundtree. So, oh my God. So he is 2-4 in his last 6. So let me just go through this and I'll share the screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So he lost to Magomed Ankalaev. Crazy. I mean, we all know how good Ankalaev is. He lost to Johnny Walker. Then he beat Ryan Spann. He lost pretty badly to Khalil Roundtree, though that was a short notice fight, but he got smoked in that fight. Then he beat Vitor Petrino. And I think that was an up-and-comer guy I remember Anthony Smith talking about that fight and just being like, yo, there's levels to this game. And he just didn't have the grappling experience and skill set to contend with him. And then he lost to Roman Dolidze, who I know you do train with. So just thinking about those Anthony Smith's recent loss, Dominick Reyes coming off a win, give us your thoughts on the matchup and how you see this fight going.
It's an incredible matchup, and this fight could be the sleeper fight of the night. Who wins this fight? It's very simple. Whoever shows up. Both of these guys are really high level. The problem I have with Anthony Smith is his consistency. He's had a bunch of injuries, all right? And when you're battling with injuries, and I'm speaking from experience, I'm not speaking like I know everything. I'm actually speaking from experience. In your head, you're like, fuck, I can hang. But then when you start getting him put in pressure situations, sometimes your mind isn't thinking about winning or putting it on more. It's more thinking about your safety. And I think as we get older, we all kind of change. Because when I was 20 years old, I was like, fuck it, I'll go out on my shield. I don't give a fuck if I get knocked out. Now I'm finding myself after a neck surgery, hand surgery, nose surgery, I'll find myself hesitating. And with the injuries Anthony Smith has dealt with over the last couple of years, I think he's in a similar boat. But can he win this fight? Absolutely. I am favoring Dominick Reyes. I feel Dominick's a little bit more consistent than Anthony is. And with Anthony's recent skid, I think it's going to be hard to battle back. But the winner of this fight is going to come down to something, again, as I already said, whoever shows up is going to win this fight. And if they both show up, it's going to be fight of the night.
I also feel like you correct me if this conclusion is incorrect, but I also just feel like generally Dominick Reyes is a much more athletic guy. I mean, do you agree with that? Just in terms, if you watch their striking, if you look at his background, and he was a college football player. I mean, is there something to that? Does that make a big difference? Because I feel like Dominick Reyes is very likely to win this fight.
I mean, you're a college football player. I'm telling you this. Football players to me are the most athletic people in the whole world. They're always the fastest, they're the biggest, they're the strongest. I'm 180 pounds. My fastest I ever ran a 40 was 4.7. There was guys in my Division III team, because I played a year of college football, that were 255 pounds beating me by 5 steps in a sprint. That's an insane, and that might not sound like a lot, but that's an incredible amount. We're talking 4.5 speed. So if Dominick Reyes played college football, he has the speed, he has the power, he has the athleticism. Like I said, this is going to be a banger of a fight. I'm edging Dominick Reyes in this fight to win. But again, if Dominick doesn't show up and Anthony shows up, it could be a long night for Dominick. If both guys show up, again, I reiterate, this could be fight of the night.
I think it's going to be a really, really fun fight, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'd love to see Dominick Reyes bounce back. I feel like what happened to him in his career after, but I think he's on a comeback, and I think he's rising up, and he's still relatively young for the heavyweight division. He's only 34. That's super young for the heavyweight division. So I think that'd be great for him to bounce back. I think what we're going to see, let's see if I'm right, but I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a pretty big speed and quickness differential between the two. And yeah, I think Dominick Reyes is definitely going to come out on top. Last question on this. If Anthony Smith does take an L here, which, you know, that would make him what 2-5 in his last 7 fights. Like, what do you think? Yeah, what do you think he's going to do after that? Or do you think this is going to be something where retirement would be something that he's going to consider, especially since he's got this huge career as a commentator and whatnot? Or do you think, hey, no, he's still only 36, he's got time?
I mean, it really just depends on him, man. It's like I don't like making calls for fighters because, you know, when everyone says, "Oh, you should retire this late," like, listen, you're not in there. I'm in there. All right, I'll
Right.
retire on my time. And Anthony has done enough in the sport. He's going to be at the risk of being cut from the UFC. He's getting to that point. If he goes in there and gets knocked out in the first round, I mean, I think it would be time to start looking at something else. And he's an incredible commentator. I love listening to the booth. He's so smart. He's articulate. Like, he has a career after fighting. He has this great opportunity, a massive career. So I guess it really just depends on his financial situation, depends on how he feels. But, you know, with all the injuries he's taking, all the losses he's taken as of recent years, I really feel his last fight that he lost, that was his chance. Like, hey, look, if I want to get back into title contention, I have to win this fight. And he didn't show up. So unfortunately, if he loses Dominick Reyes, I think he has to hang it up. But again, whatever he decides to do, if he decides to fight more or hang it up, I support.
Fair enough. Okay, let's go with a couple of comments from Tehran. He says he's got Reyes first round knockout. I kind of agree. And he says, I think Anthony Smith is fighting for a paycheck at this point. I don't know. I think he believes that he can still climb to the top. I mean, dude, if he does beat Dominick Reyes, that would be a huge statement. That would actually be insane if he beat Dominick Reyes, because I think Dominick Reyes is really having a resurgence right now. I believe he's fighting at a paycheck at this point. I don't believe he's taking the sport seriously anymore. I think in his mind, he is. No, I disagree, because I've heard him talk to Michael Bisping on their podcast a lot, and he is taking it very seriously. And I know he takes those losses to heart. They really affect him. So I think he's trying his best, but we'll just see if it's enough. But I mean, man, Dominick Reyes is such a tough fighter. And he says, I can see Reyes beating Smith. That's what I think. I think there's going to be a massive speed differential. And I think, I guess we'll see. One thing that Tehran also threw out here, which I did not know, Tehran's always got intel on a lot of this really interesting stuff. Tehran, I think, was it you that told me to bet on? No, somebody in this chat told me to bet on Tyson to win in the first 4 rounds. It was actually good odds, but yo, that was not a good idea. That was terrible. But anyways, so he says, this is all topic, but I seen yesterday that Renato Moicano and Beneil Dariush for 311. People were saying this. People were saying that would be a good matchup. Holy smokes. This fight is going down in LA. This card is just sounding better and better. We already have Jamahal Hill and Yuri as the co-main, and we know what we think is the main event, but it still hasn't been confirmed. I don't know why, but wow, that card is looking like it's going to be incredible. Okay, let's keep it moving. So number 5, once again, the topic was, which we kind of already touched upon, Aljo on the prelims. This is crazy, but let's move on from that specifically. What do you think of the matchup? Aljo against Movsar Evloev, I believe. Let me just double check.
You know, I can't give you a great prediction of the matchup, because I can't say I know his opponent all too well. I'll be honest. Okay. Aljo, I haven't seen him in the gym. I don't know where he's training right now. He's probably back with Matt Serra. You know, like I said, man, I can never root against Aljo. He's just such a great guy and a great human and a great fighter. Whoever he fights, whether it's for the belt, whether it's on a prelim or not, I support Aljamain Sterling, and I really hope he gets in the win column this weekend.
So Evloev is okay. So I know he's a Russian fighter. He's got a grappling base. Holy smokes, dude! What? Okay, wait. I still want to pick Aljo just because of his experience level. But dude, look at this guy's record. What the heck? He's totally undefeated. I didn't know that. Look. Holy smoke. Oh, he beat Arnold Allen, too. That's a pretty good victory. Diego Lopez.
Yeah, but hold on. Let's slow down for a second. Go up.
Go
up a little higher. 3 wins by knockout, 4 wins by decision, 11 by decision. I already don't like him. Wait,
but let's see when those decisions. Oh, he's got a string of decisions. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
all his
dude, I don't like him.
That's crazy. His last 7 fights were by decision. I'm sure he's got a grappling base. Hold on, let's see. Ultimate Fighting Champ is spent all his time as M1 Global. I don't even heard of M1. Have you?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So he may not be a fan favorite, but holy smokes, dude, that's a crazy record. Literally
Sounds like
no
a good
loss.
matchup for Aljamain though, because Aljamain's such a good grappler. Like if these guys get in grappling exchanges, this is somewhere where I could find Aljamain catching him on his back and be able to ride him out for 15 minutes.
Okay. So maybe we can't give a good prediction. Neither of us know a ton about Evloev, but I mean, I've heard his name. People have been talking about him
I've
for a
heard of his
while.
name. Yeah, I've heard of his name, but I can't think of any time he fought. And honestly, if he wasn't fighting Aljo, I wouldn't care to watch this guy fight. He's won 7 decisions in a row. I think once you win like 5 decisions in a row, like you should be on the cutting block. Like, you know what? My fights, we never went to decision. I just fucking got in there, slugged him out, either got knocked out and I think that's how it has to be. When you start winning 5, 6, 7, 8 decisions in a row, like, hey, look, we need to do something different. And I know that's never going to happen, but like this is why we don't know about this guy, because nobody gives a fuck to watch guys win his decision. He's won 7 decisions in a row. If he wasn't fighting Aljamain Sterling, I wouldn't be tuned into this fight.
The other thing about decisions, like, look, Tehran says he's got Sterling. All right, let's go. The other thing about decisions to me, like, look, I get it. Sometimes you're doing your best and you just can't finish the guy, right? Like Max Holloway is one of those guys that just almost can never be finished with the exception of his last fight. And so it's going to go to a decision if you can't finish him and he doesn't finish you. I think, though, one of the most difficult things about decision victories is not even the lack of a highlight, but to me, it's an unsatisfactory feeling because now it's like you're relinquishing control of that fight to the judges, to a third party. And it's no longer like, hey, I'm taking control of this fight. I'm winning it with either submission or a knockout. I'm the one that did that, versus now somebody else is making that decision. And we've seen it go different ways. And then it can be a whole question of, did they make the right decision? And that always is messy and unsettling. And it's difficult, I feel like, as a fan, especially if you're really rooting for a certain fighter. It just sucks. So that's a little bit more perspective. It's not always just, oh, it's boring. Like some decision fights are some of them, like Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway almost went to a decision, and that would have still been an amazing fight. It's just that feeling of like, if it wasn't a landslide victory, did the judges get it right? And I think that's the thing that always bothers me about decisions. But okay, now we're going to move on to our final topic, which is your boy, Jamahal Hill. And I want to say this, right? Probably a lot of people have seen him in the headlines going off against Yuri, going off against Magomed, just still talking about the Alex Pereira loss and saying that he felt like the whole thing came down to incorrect movements or decisions by Herb Dean. I think, I just had this epiphany over the weekend in my own life. One thing that I think helps people move forward and just feel more positive and be more proactive and productive is look, and I'm not a fighter and I don't know what it's like to go through what Jamahal Hill's going through, but I feel like if you can, even if maybe some blame you could arguably reasonably put on other people, I think if you try to do your best to take full ownership of situations that haven't gone your way, man, it relieves a lot of anxiety and pressure that you're otherwise just always going to have this hatred or anger towards a third party or another person about something not going your way. But it just be like, wait, yeah, maybe something they did, they shouldn't have done it and it would have impacted the outcome. But if you're just like, well, forget that. They're going to do what they're going to do. I can't control that. But maybe if I would have done this instead, or if I would have done that instead, and take ownership, I think you'll feel better internally, because I know that's how it is for me. And you can actually use that loss or use whatever went wrong on your end to make yourself a better fighter. And I think, unfortunately, Jamahal Hill seems to be trapped in this cycle of, although he could just be doing this to make headlines. I don't know, right? He's really smart. But I think that's the problem, is he sort of seems to be trapped in this cycle of, like, to some extent, blaming external forces in terms of what's happened recently. Now, I'm going to play you a quick clip here from Jamahal Hill, and then Justin, I know he's your boy, so I want to hear your thoughts on what's going on. But I will say this: good, bad, positive, and negative, he's getting headlines. So we are getting everybody's talking about this Yuri fight. So check this out. Oh, we need to unmute this. Sorry, 1 second.
Versus Yuri set for UFC 311. The two have gone back and forth on social media, with Yuri saying that Jamahal hasn't shown anything special in his last 3 fights. Jamahal responded to this by saying Yuri got dominated in his last fight against Alex Pereira, while he only got caught. He also points to Yuri.
So which is kind of like, just to start off, it just feels like a kind of like a silly debate, right? Like two people lost, and he's like, but you lost. Sorry.
Jamahal Hill said
He's like going on about, hey, but you lost worse because I got caught. And like, it's just like, why are we even like, it just seems silly. It's almost like, you know, if you get 30 cents and I get 31 cents, I'm like, yeah, man, you only got 30 cents. You suck, dog. But I got like 31 cents, like a little bit more. And it's an arbitrary value. Like, it's like, what are we really arguing about? But anyways, let's watch a little bit more. So this is what him going back and forth with Yuri is all about. One thing I will say, though, that is cool is I've never really heard Yuri talk smack. And he's like, Yuri's getting all up in arms about this, which is kind of making it more which is definitely making it more interesting. But let me play a little bit more. I accidentally rewound it.
Says he's better than Yuri Prochazka. Jamahal hasn't shown anything special in his last 3 fights. Jamahal responded to this by saying Yuri got dominated in his last fight against Alex Pereira, while he only got caught. He also points to Yuri's win against Glover Teixeira not being as impressive as his win over him. But what do you think? Jamahal Hill says he's
that's also like a weird thing too, where they both beat Glover Teixeira, and then he's kind of trying to diminish his victory against Glover, saying, yeah, Glover was dominating him the whole time, and then Glover made a mistake, and that's what he was able to capitalize on, versus Jamahal kind of really dominated that entire fight. Anyways, Justin, like, what do you make of this? And I know you and Jamahal came up on the Michigan scene together, so I know you've known him for a long time. But, yeah, just give me your thoughts on Jamal's mindset. You know, what do you think is going on right now, and how do you think it's going to affect the fight?
You know, I'm concerned for Jamahal because he cannot get over this loss to Alex Pereira. Like, bro, that happened so long ago. Stop blaming. Like, Jamal's my guy, man. And so if he sees this, you know, if he's offended by it, that's fine. Like, I'm saying it from love, but we need to get over this, because no matter how much you bitch or complain about it, it's done and it's not going to change. All right. Whether you're right or wrong is irrelevant. We need to focus on the task at hand. And this is why John Jones is the best in the world. If John Jones just lost to Stipe, when he has another fight looked up, he's not going to be talking about Stipe anymore. Just like before, when he was fighting Stipe, he wasn't talking about Tom Aspinall, even though everyone was trying to provoke him to. Jamahal Hill has a very, very tough task ahead of him, regardless of how he feels about the fight or not. It's a tough fight. And he's still talking about Alex. Bro, we have a fucking dog in front of him. If he loses to Yuri, the chance of him getting his title shot back is dropped from he wins, he gets it, or if he loses, now he has to win 2 or 3 maybe, and depending on how he wins and who he beats. But, I mean, the champion mindset is the next pass. You know, Brett Favre said it best. You know, they talked about him being a quarterback, and he always threw so many interceptions. Brett Favre said, I don't give a fuck. He goes, I'm going to throw an interception, and I'm going to walk off the field, go right back on the field. I'm going to throw another interception, and I don't give a shit. He doesn't talk about, before his next set, oh, well, the defender this or the defender. No, fuck it. He's chunking balls, and whatever happens, happens. And Jamahal needs to do the same thing. He needs to get over that interception with Alex, and he needs to focus on the next set of downs with Yuri in front of him, because if he's not focused, he's going to find himself looking up the lights once again. And I hope he doesn't blame it on something like Herb Dean or something again.
Now, I will say this, pretty much every analyst that I've listened to is picking Jamahal Hill in this fight. Again, primarily just because he's clearly, you know, the more technical fighter. Yuri is a very unorthodox fighter. Dude, I just saw a video, by the way, too, of how Yuri trains. It's insane. He trains in this outdoor. Have you seen this? It was posted a month ago. He trains in this outdoor area, and he's like, he uses this wood board that he punches with like a little bit of, I don't know. It's just really unorthodox. It's not like a typical gym. It's out in the open. It just seems very bizarre. But if you look at their two fighting styles, Jamahal Hill is just a classically trained, you know, he's got really good fundamentals and foundations with every part of his game. It's again, kind of like when Yuri Prochazka fought Alexander Rakic, and it seemed like Rakic was clearly piecing him up and was winning that fight. I don't know what happened. Yuri just would not relent. And Yuri's got an amazingly strong mind. I'll give him that 100%. And he's an amazingly fun fighter to watch as well. But I think as long as you can maintain your mental composure and stay in there, as long as Jamahal can, I just feel like that differential in the foundations and fundamentals is going to go Jamahal Hill's way. I mean, do you feel the same way?
I feel exactly the same way. Where Jamahal Hill's going to lose this fight is if he's thinking about Alex, if he's thinking about the title. Listen, this is not a title fight. This is not Alex. All right? You already had that chance. You lost. You blew it. It fucking sucks. We need to get over that and stop. Like, you need to forget about that shit. We got to go to the next thing. And the next thing in front of him is Yuri. And if he goes in there with a clouded judgment, like when Yuri's walking out or he's walking out, he's like, all right, I have to beat this fight so I can get back to Alex and try and get that loss back because, you know, Herb Dean stopped the fight bullshit and this and that. Like, that's not it. Hey, I would love to say Jamahal, hey, you know what? I fucking lost, but I'm going to beat Yuri. Because technique-wise, I think Jamahal handles him 9 times out of 10. But if he goes in there with a clouded mindset, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, and that's my fear for Jamahal.
Last thing I'll say on this before we wrap up the show, what is the likelihood that Jamahal is doing all this just because he knows it's going to grab headlines and doesn't actually feel this way? Do you think what percent chance do you give that?
I don't give that a chance. I don't think that's accurate. I think Jamahal Hill really feels that he was cheated against Alex. I think he's really bothered by it. Again, I wasn't in the position, obviously, from a guy watching and being a fan of Jamahal. Personally, I'll be straight up, and again, he's not going to like me saying this. I didn't think it played a factor. I don't think it played a factor at all, regardless of what I feel. Jamahal feels it did. So I don't think Jamahal would come up headlines just talking about Alex and that he should have won just because it's bringing up headlines, because it's not bringing him good headlines. You know what I mean? Like people are calling him a baby, a whiner, this and that, and so it's not, these aren't like positive things that he's getting back to. I mean, I guess being in the headlines, even negative press is positive press, but I'd rather have him, people say, hey man, like fucking Jamahal really ate that loss, even though there was some weird shit, and now he beats Yuri, and now everyone's going to be excited to see the rematch against Alex.
All right, fair enough. Last thing, we'll point out some comments from Tehran, and we're going to wrap the show. I think Grappling, cancels out. Oh, he's talking about Aljo fight. Wait, he made a post here related to Jamahal Hill. He said, even Justin Gaethje isn't talking about his loss to Max Holloway. He actually gave Holloway props. Yeah, it does seem like that would, of course, be the better way to go. Maybe Jamahal Hill will get there before this January fight. But anyways, that's it for today, guys. We got a lot of exciting stuff coming up this weekend. Cannot wait for this UFC 310 card. I am super excited. And I'm going to try and watch the entire thing. I'm going to try and watch all the prelims as well, because it's outside of UFC 300, this might be the most stacked card of the year. So anyways, thank you guys so much for joining. Please click the like button if you haven't done so yet. We really appreciate it. It really helps the video and the channel tremendously. And if you guys haven't subscribed yet, make sure to click that subscribe button. Western Mass Climber, where are you? We didn't see you today. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining.
One more thing. I haven't even told you yet, but I got an incredible opportunity this weekend. I'll be going to St. Louis on Thursday, and I will be commentating the Iowa Hawkeyes versus Princeton and Army Division I college wrestling match.
Oh, amazing. All right. So if you guys are wrestling fans, make sure to check that out. You can hear Justin do his commentating thing. So very, very cool. All right.
Yeah, it's a big opportunity. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Amazing. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining. We will see you back on Friday right before the big show goes down. All right. See you guys next time. Take it easy.